Welcome to On the Edge with Deneen Dias. Today, my guests are Byron Patrick and Blake Oliver. Would you two please go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Yeah,
Byron, you can
absolutely.
start.
Cool. Thank you. Good morning. Hello. Byron Patrick. I'm the general manager here at Botkeeper. Long time, just kind of accounting industry rat. Happy to be here with you today, Denise.
Thanks, Byron. Go ahead, Blake.
Likewise, happy to be here, and I just went out of focus, so I'm going to try to fix
Good.
that. My name is Blake. I'm a CPA and got my start as a bookkeeper in this profession. There we go. Before that, I was a musician, so picked up bookkeeping as a way to pay for my music habit, and found out I really liked it, and people wanted to pay me for it, and I wasn't driving around doing a bunch of weddings. And I'm really glad during the pandemic that I made that change 10 years ago, because it's definitely better sitting here at my home office. So yeah, happy to be here. I have a podcast, the Cloud Accounting Podcast. Everyone should subscribe and listen. We're the #1
Absolutely.
podcast at the intersection of accounting and technology. And so I love getting on here and talking with you all about the future of our profession.
Yeah, well, we have some hot topics that we want to cover today. And when we were kind of huddling together, prepping for, what we could really bring to the conversation today that is very current, we talked about how long we've been doing this, and there was some synergies. I think, Byron, when did you start really helping firms and really looking at working in the cloud?
Well, I mean, I started my company, Simplified Innovations, in 2008, where we were actually, that was early like desktop hosting days. So that was, almost the in-between of what we consider the cloud today and the cloud then. But it really goes back even prior to that. I became the IT director of a regional CPA firm in 2004. And we began, co-loing our servers in data centers and, getting involved. So it's, we took that firm paperless, frankly, in 2004. So yeah, it's been a hot second.
Yeah. And what about you, Blake? I think you started as well. Did you say in 09?
Yeah, so I graduated from college with a music degree in 06, 07. And that was right around the financial crisis, if we all recall those dark days. Seems like a wonderful time now in retrospect, right? Let's go back to that.
That's right.
Yeah, no, so that's when I started picking up bookkeeping work, and I was doing QuickBooks desktop bookkeeping. I got a bunch of clients. I was freelancing, and I'd drive around and I'd key in their transactions from paper bank statements, and I'd print out checks and get them to sign the checks, and then I'd mail out the checks.
Yeah.
And I would run payroll. I had a client with a paper time card system where people clocked in and out, and I had to add it all up. And that was right around when QuickBooks Online and Xero came to the U.S. market. QuickBooks Online started to get good, and cloud became less of a pain and much easier. And so that's like, I saw that happen.
Yeah.
I jumped on it and basically redid how I did business. It cut the manual work by like 80%, and I had to go to fixed monthly fees for my clients, and we started a website and did digital marketing and got clients through the website primarily. And yeah, kind of stumbled into running a digital accounting firm, and we weren't a CPA firm at the time.
Firms.
Yeah, we weren't a CPA firm at the time. I like to say I was disrupting the CPA world. I eventually did go get my CPA anyway, but you don't have to be one to do that kind of stuff. And yeah, it was great. There's huge demand for bookkeeping and what we all sometimes call client accounting services. I think it's it's and people want it more and more and more and more, and it's exciting to see more and more firms get into it, because when I was doing it, most firms I talked to had no interest in bookkeeping. They saw it as low value, low margin, not worth our time, which I think is funny, because bookkeeping is like the core of accounting, and we call our profession accounting, and yet most firms, weren't doing any of it.
Right. They
They're
don't
just
want
doing,
to. They still, you know,
yeah.
I started in '09 at CPA.com helping firms embrace the cloud. And firms are like, they didn't even know what the cloud was. They didn't trust the cloud. They didn't even have email, right? Their clients didn't have internet, so they couldn't do this. And so a lot of, you know, we've got the three of us have over, you know, 10 to 12 years experience helping firms think about the way to transform their practice. And to your point, Blake, I still talk to firms that are like, nope, don't want to do bookkeeping. Nope, don't want to do payroll. Nope, don't want to do payroll. And I'm surprised by that too, because the firms that are, it's a huge revenue generator, right? It's changed. So I'd love for the two of you to just like talk about that and the way you think about it.
Well, I know why they don't want to do it because I had my own practice and then I sold it and I went to work for a big firm so that I could learn how it all works there. And I lasted 1 year at the large firm, but I did learn all their secrets, right? Which weren't really many. It was more like all the things that they were doing wrong from a business standpoint. And we at that firm, even though we were embracing the concept of value pricing and fixed fees, behind the scenes, it was all still based on hourly rates and realization.
Yeah.
And when you try to apply hourly methodology to bookkeeping, you fail
Right.
because let's just be honest, bookkeeping is never going to have the same value in the mind of the customer as tax planning.
Right.
It's just the nature of it, right? That's not to say bookkeeping isn't important, but it's just a lower value activity. And then you try to take these rates that you're given based on people's salaries and try to fit that into some sort of hourly fixed fee, but really hourly engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And your realization in the firm's software looks like crap compared to the other teams.
Right.
Right. And so that's one of the things that's messed up about the way people think about it.
It's so funny, Blake. We have an accounting pro forum, kind of some of our accounting firm partners, and we get together for, you know, kind of conversation on topics going on. And just yesterday, we were talking about, you know, payroll. It's as an example. So not necessarily processing payroll, but helping clients with payroll. And one of the things that comes up is like, especially right now, like companies are hiring people all over the country, which means state tax IDs that have to be registered for. And, you know, as a bookkeeper or accountant, you could spend a ridiculous amount of time just getting like a Vermont state ID and a Massachusetts state ID. Nobody values that. They think it's just like a flip of the switch, right? It's just boop.
Yeah, and go try and charge an hour to a
Right.
business owner for doing their state registration.
Yeah,
and they'll be
an hour.
and they'll be furious, right? So like it's a terrible client experience and it's not good for the firm. And so like you have to get out of the hourly model if you want to offer this kind of thing. Yeah.
It's the same thing with sales and use tax as payroll, right? Sales and use tax is getting so complicated. It is so complicated and the clients don't understand it. And they're calling the firm saying, will you help me with it? Same thing as payroll, right? Firms are saying no because it's so complicated. But I think the firms have to figure out a way to say yes. How do they say yes to what the client needs? Because, and like you and I, you know, and Byron, we talk about that. Someone else is coming along to say, yes, I want that business. And that's the hot topic that we can talk about.
Well, most firms don't bother thinking about client experience. They look at everything from their own perspective. And as a marketing person, I've been doing marketing in 2 different tech companies for 4 years now. So I've had a kind of a crash course in marketing as a CPA. And I'll tell you that in an accounting firm, marketing is less about lead generation and more about the experience that your customers have working with you in your firm. And so if you want to build a successful business, you got to think like Amazon. Amazon doesn't worry about the profitability on every order. What they worry about is creating the best e-commerce experience in the world so that you come back for everything from them and you become a Prime member and a subscriber and loyal. And that's the thing you have to do as a firm is think big picture like that. And if you don't offer payroll or bookkeeping or sales tax, your client is going to look for that somewhere else. And then eventually you're going to lose their tax return too.
That's right.
That's right.
Yeah.
So convenience, reliability, experience, you nailed it.
Well, and I think
And where,
being client-centric, like kind of
yeah,
break the way you've always done it on this in the traditional firm. Because on the client accounting side, it needs to be different. It needs to be very different than the way you run your audit and tax practice. And to your point, it needs to be client-centric. What is the client needing? Because everything starts with a transaction, and that transactional work is so important. And other companies are going to come in and say yes. And well, we're
right.
starting to see that. So let's talk about that a little bit.
So yeah, so you had to be living under a rock if you didn't hear about QuickBooks Live when Intuit announced that a couple of years ago. And
Yeah.
for those who don't know, QuickBooks Live is bookkeeping, a bookkeeping service built into the QuickBooks product. You can hire a bookkeeping team from Intuit. I forget exactly what the prices are, a few $100s a month, and they will on demand do a video call with you inside of QuickBooks and help you reconcile transactions, all this stuff, right? So this is Intuit going directly to QuickBooks customers and offering something the accounting profession has failed to do. Now, there's questions as to the quality in the first year or two. They've struggled because they're a software company learning how to do bookkeeping. But if anyone can figure out how to scale up this practice, I'm gonna put my money on Intuit, a multi-billion-dollar company with lots and lots of resources to do it. And we've seen other startups. We've seen Pilot raise a bunch of money. Jeff Bezos has personally invested in Pilot, which is a bookkeeping client accounting services startup that's competing directly with accounting firms. I had to go through and make a list from all the ones we've talked about on my show before. There's bench.co, which is up in Vancouver doing bookkeeping. They also make software, so they combine software and bookkeeping. We've got Zenny, which just raised a bunch of money, AI-powered finance team for startups. There's one called Proper that does bookkeeping just for property managers. That's very specific, and it's very targeted and very persuasive. We've got Awesome. That's another one that just raised money out of Singapore. And then there's one in France called Penny Lane. So all this VC money is pouring into how do we disrupt accounting? And I think it's our own fault, right? Because we have not innovated. But that's not to say there isn't a huge opportunity for accounting firms, because we see studies over and over again that the ones who do embrace all these services and holistic client experience are just growing like crazy, 20 to 50% annually, which is insane for a professional services firm.
Yeah. When I talk to firms that are focusing on doing this, they're having massive, massive growth. But Byron, what Blake brings up a really good point, and it's something that when we were in Engage, I was very surprised firms were not talking about it. Because here at Botkeeper, we talk a lot about it. We're watching this, we're seeing what's happening. We've been telling firms this is coming, but I mean, it's here. We're reading about it, I feel like every other day, that there's a venture-backed technology bookkeeping company. So I'd love for you, kind of, Byron, to just talk about, how we think about this and what we're seeing coming, and how we feel like we can help.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it actually does, Blake. As you were talking, I was kind of thinking about the parallels of the taxi industry, right, and Uber and Lyft showing up, and how quickly that moved. And I don't think within professional services we will see things happen that quickly, but we are seeing the beginnings of that. And you're right, Deneen. I mean, Engage was awesome. It was such a great time to get together. A lot of talk about CAS, but the thing that you don't hear a lot about is the client experience, the convenience, the kind of the go-to-market strategy, effectively, that firms should be thinking about. It's so much more than just planting a flag in the ground and saying, I do bookkeeping, because that is what QBO is effectively enabling, people to plant that stake, and Intuit will actually worry about the client experience and the go-to-market strategy and all of that stuff. So, firms, while they may think this is just a bookkeeping or CAS type of challenge, I think this is, the beginnings of a much larger motion that professional service organizations need to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, remote work has really shifted how people buy. We saw the explosion
Yeah.
of e-commerce during the pandemic. The same
Right.
thing has started to happen with business services too. So it's great
Sure.
that we have firms that engage that are thinking about cloud now. The first slide that I saw in the first presentation was the benefits of cloud computing. And that is exciting to see because we're making progress, but it's still 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So can firms catch up?
Yeah.
I think the big ones, they move the slowest. They're going to have the biggest challenge, but they're okay in many ways because they've got the audit, they've got the really complex tax, all this
Right.
compliance work that's super lucrative. Like they can just do that forever. And it's not likely that we're going to have a software company come in and disrupt them, right? But I worry about the 15,000 CPA firms out there that aren't doing that work for bigger businesses, that are working with small businesses who are now being targeted by these software companies that are providing software and a service, like
Right.
Uber. Uber provides software, right? They're
Right.
primarily a software company, but they also provide people to
Right.
drive you
Yep.
around. And
Right.
really, we could say QuickBooks Live is a similar thing, similar concept.
Yep.
It's going to take a little longer, but in the big scheme of things, why wouldn't I go with a company that knows how to create an amazing customer
Right.
experience where I can book a meeting on Tuesday with my bookkeeper inside of my accounting package, and I don't, what's the experience for in a typical accounting firm? It's like I got to email my guy and then
Right.
hope that he sends me 3 different times and one of them works for me, and then I say yes, and then when we try to get on, the video conferencing doesn't work because he doesn't know how to use his webcam. It's like
Well, and that's the big thing, right? Like the client, the face of the client is changing significantly, right? So
Right.
that was fine when 10 years ago, the customers, the business owners, the entrepreneurs were of a different generation of customers. And every year that goes by, the generation of customers doesn't want to hail a cab. They just want
That's right.
to, hit it up, schedule it on their phone. So
yeah,
it's that, there's so much opportunity, and the smaller firms, the smaller organizations, and when I say small, I mean that's 100 employees is a small organization. They do have the agility to
They
spin
do.
things up, test things, experiment. I think it's a crazy exciting time. While
Right.
these threats exist, the opportunity is just limitless.
well, and I agree. It's huge opportunity available if you're willing to do something different. And
Yeah.
we can learn from these software companies. They're actually warming the market up, right? So you can either see
Sure.
QuickBooks Live as a threat, or you can see it as an opportunity because now Intuit is making people aware that, oh, I can hire a bookkeeper and it doesn't have to be Polly who charges me $20 an hour in my local town. It can be anyone
Right.
from anywhere.
Right.
That, like, they're educating the market, and we can draft off of that, right? They're doing
Right.
all the hard work. So do you mind if I share my screen? I want to show you what Intuit is doing.
Sure.
This is fascinating. Okay.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah. Show us.
So this just came out, I believe, this month. So by the way, we're now in competition with Intuit to hire staff. So good luck with that, right? Intuit is hiring. They said on a webinar earlier this month, they're hiring like hundreds and hundreds of QuickBooks Live bookkeepers for this fall. They're making a big push. And as part of this, they are launching a course on Coursera, a free Intuit bookkeeping professional certificate course, and it's 80 hours. So this is designed, excuse me, I just lost my screen. There we go. This is designed to train their future workforce because they think that our accounting education programs are inadequate to the task, right? That you can't go get a certificate in bookkeeping very easily. They exist, but they're not very good, and then they don't do the tech. So this course combines the tech and the bookkeeping, and it's 80 hours, and at the end you're going to get a certificate, and they're even doing like proctored examinations through Pearson VUE. So you can go to a testing center, right, and get a test.
Oh, wow.
Take a test. Yeah, that's like, this is like they're like trying to do the CPA exam for bookkeeping.
That's right. Digital
Right.
badge certification. Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Wow.
yes, and so you can take it at home, and they have like somebody watch you on a video cam the whole time. It's really an interesting concept, right? Proctored testing. But so this is where
Like
they're
my kids in
innovating.
college.
But this is cool because
We talk about this all the time, Byron. First of all, capacity. Firms are capacity. The number one reason that they can't take on more clients is they don't have enough talent, right? That's number one. So in some ways, I feel like Intuit's going to create more bookkeepers, which is good because there's more businesses than bookkeepers. And on
Right.
top of that, we've got the Great Resignation. So we're going to be seeing people like you, Blake, that are, that are quitting their job because they love to be a musician and they want to pursue their passion of music, but they can have a side bookkeeping business too that they can do on the side while they're doing their music. I mean,
Yeah.
it's innovative. Yeah, and it's changing.
And that's where firms should really be looking, is like the career changers for staff, right? Because it's so hard to find accounting staff. Find the career changers like me. I had to do it myself. It was really
Right.
hard. I had to learn, and not everybody is capable or has the resources to do that. I was very fortunate, and I had a safety net and I could do that. Not everybody does. This is a way to help people get into that. So I would say, to go back to the idea of like, let's draft off of these big spenders. Use this course to vet your accounting hires, right? Make them take the exam. It costs like $125 for the exam, but you could say like, take that in your first 2 weeks or something. And to keep working at our firm, you have to pass it, right? And then, obviously there's like leveraging resources like Botkeeper, right? Like if we're going to create an awesome customer experience, we've got to lower our own costs so that we can match the value we're creating with the costs, the costs that we are spending, right? We can't be doing bookkeeping with staff that are, we normally would bill out at $100 an hour. It's just, and there's still firms, in LA on Wilshire Boulevard that I used to compete against when I lived in LA that were charging $80 an hour for bookkeeping, $90 an hour for like write-up work. And they were losing clients for left and right as a result. So I want to show you some of these other sites I mentioned. So I mentioned like Pilot, check out these accounting firms and look at their marketing and look how different this is than a traditional accounting firm website. It's like super clear, call to action, request a demo, right? Like as a marketer, I really admire this. Or take a look at, how Bench does. Your business, you run your business, we'll handle your finances. So, they're not selling the
trial.
They got a free trial. They're not selling bookkeeping. They are selling peace of mind.
Yeah.
Right. And then, you've got Zenny. This one, not quite as good. They're smaller, AI-powered finance team for startups, but like it looks different, right? This is not an accounting firm, but they're doing finance. They're doing like CFO services. They're doing daily bookkeeping, bill pay and invoicing. And you can bet that they're doing it on a fixed value-based fee, right? Look at this.
There you go.
Here's bookkeeping, full service professional plan. This is what we are competing against now, and you can't ignore it. You've got to compete with it somehow. Now, you don't do this 3-tiered pricing, but you got to do something different. You certainly can't. You certainly can't say, "Oh, well, let's just start working together. Sign my engagement letter, and we'll send you a bill at the end of the month." Right? That's not a good customer experience.
And you don't know what that bill is going to cost you because you have no idea the 2 hours I was on the phone with Vermont.
Oh yeah. Oh, and then of course it discourages people from calling you, right? Which is not what we want.
Well, and to your point, people shop differently, they buy differently now, and people want to get started immediately. They don't want to wait to have a meeting with the firm to then talk to them about their business, to then 2 weeks later get a proposal from the firm, to then, say sign an engagement letter, and then a month later get started, but you got to clean up the books. And so maybe 3 months later, you're going to start with they want to literally click a button here, get started, right? That's the way people want to buy now. And nor do they want to see anybody. They don't want anybody in their office with the pandemic, right? We just want to get started. Virtual's fine.
Yeah, talk with us. Look at this. I bet you this immediately puts you into a funnel where they're going to like figure out what your needs are and like give you probably an automated type of quote. These guys specialize in property managers, just property managers, right? Like this is actually the one I'm the most bullish on. Like cut your accounting costs by 50%.
Yep. Great.
Very clear marketing, right? Like very to the point. Where do they say they don't disclose their pricing? I don't think. Yeah. Some of these do, some of these don't.
Do you think some of the traditional firms are going to say, great, we don't want to live here, let these companies take over? Or do you really think they're going to say, well, whoa, these companies are going to start doing tax returns?
Well, that's what's going to happen, right? That's why there's an existential threat here, is because it's not that far off. So if you ignore this and you don't start competing, eventually they're going to come for those tax returns. And it's going to start with the lower end stuff. We've already seen many firms, because of just the TurboTax trend, right? Get away from doing 1040s, because how do you compete against that? But I'm telling you, business returns are not that far behind, right? They can be automated using a process to some extent, and as much as they can, software companies are going to come after it, because each of those business returns is worth at like $1,200 or more a year, and that's $100 a month is like right in the sweet spot for B2B SaaS companies.
And it kind of goes back to actually something you talked about this week, Blake, on the podcast, is the fact that to be a tax preparer, you just have to call yourself one. You actually don't have to be a CPA. You don't have to be an EA. Obviously, it's encouraged, but so there's really no barrier to entry for these organizations to just layer that stuff on. And realistically, quality is sometimes debatable as to whether or not clients really care about quality when it comes to a basic tax return.
And meanwhile, just to speak for the CPA profession a little bit, we've been making it harder and harder for people to become CPAs, to the point where it's like less than half of accountants now are certified in this country. Wow. And in some places, it's probably closer to a third. So like if I were starting my firm again, I wouldn't make it a CPA firm. Why would I do that? Right. Maybe I'd hire CPAs to work for me and I'd advertise their own credential individually. But to be a CPA firm is a big hassle these days, and I don't have to be one to compete. So like this is it's a crazy situation we're in.
We're definitely seeing that at Botkeeper, Byron. That's our buyer. We've been signing up about a firm a day, and our buyer is that progressive firm that you just talked about. And a lot of them are saying we don't call ourselves a CPA firm. Yes, we help with everything though, and we'll partner with a tax firm, we'll partner with a law firm, we'll partner with an international, because a lot of their businesses have international, business, and so we'll bring in the partners, but we're kind of that glue that keeps it all together, right? And we do what the customer needs. Do we do bookkeeping? Of course. Right? But that we're not calling ourselves a bookkeeping company. We do so much more. That's that moving into, that next type of firm that's doing so much more for clients. And guess what? This firm I have in mind in particular, they take a percentage of their clients' revenue. Yep. They're helping their client, be a $10 million business, and we're gonna take 5% of that. Talk about charging by the hour. That's out the door.
That's value. Yeah, that's value right there. And it's funny. I actually always gut checked my pricing based on that. I would say, okay, roughly, I looked at my clients, I looked at their revenue, and then I looked at how much I was charging them for bookkeeping. And like roughly it tended to be like around 1 to 2% of their gross, like somewhere in there. So if my proposal wasn't in that realm, then I knew I was off. I was missing something, right? And maybe I wasn't capturing all the value. So yeah, that's a great way to do it. Business managers in Los Angeles, where I started my career, have been doing the percentage-based fee for a long time, because it's all about that relationship, right? It's not about the specific tasks I am doing for you every week. It's about, I'm your guy, I'm your money guy, right? And you, Mr. Celebrity, can call me whenever you need anything, and I will pick up the phone. So that is the value.
That's for sure.
I'm gonna charge you.
I'm going to protect your money, right? I'm going to make money with your money. I mean, there's so much exciting things. To your point, Byron, I think it's a really exciting time. And we've got a minute left. I feel like we could keep talking about this for hours. With that minute, is there any questions, Stella?
There are no questions currently, but feel free to put them in the question or the chat section.
Well, I just want to say, I just want to say thank you for having me on. And I think that what you guys are doing is great at Botkeeper, because it's a really, really hard time to build a bookkeeping practice and to build CAS, because as we discussed, all these software companies are out there recruiting our talent into their own firms, right? So, and there's a talent shortage in general. And then also there's just not a lot of people who were trained how to do this in school, because accounting programs are teaching people to go work for the Big Four and do audit, not how to do accounting. Ironically, right? Our accounting programs don't train people how to do accounting.
Right.
So you guys are the potential solution that I would look at to offer this without having to build it all out myself in my practice.
I appreciate that, because that is truly what we want to enable firms to survive and thrive. And we want to be the arm, like the engine inside, to allow them to not say no to the business, to say yes to the business, because we're the tech and talent that can help them get there and certainly price competitively to these competitors coming into the market. Byron, I'll let you have the last thought.
You know what? I have a really key takeaway that just came up, but I'm going to save it. I'll tweet it out when we share the episode. Now, Blake, thanks so much for joining. Definitely appreciate
it.
Chance to kind of kick it. And yeah, again, I feel like a few drinks, we could probably talk about this for a couple hours.
All night long.
Yeah.
Blake, and what's the name of your podcast again, and how can people join and start listening in?
Yes, it is the Cloud Accounting Podcast, and you can listen and subscribe at cloudaccountingpodcast.com. We are up to, gosh, what is it, like 240 episodes here, and
Wow.
we talk all about accounting and technology, and most of our listeners are people building CAS practices, and that's where I come from, so I love talking about that stuff every week.
Absolutely, and one thing, Blake, I mean, that's basically all of my teams. I'm telling everybody to be ready to listen and talk about the episode. So for everybody listening, definitely see the quickest download of what the hell's going on each week.
And we're working on getting CPE for it. So very soon you'll be able to get CPE for listening to the Cloud Accounting Podcast.
So more to come. Excellent. Yep. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you. See y'all.
Bye-bye.